The Amazing Digital Circus is an incredibly complicated show with so many details and possible theories that can be crafted off of the 5 episodes that are currently out on both YouTube and Netflix. The main writer of the show, Gooseworks, has been very vocal about how they were inspired to write a show like The Amazing Digital Circus, as well as their feelings about all the characters and hints as to where the show is headed in the future. What I wanted to talk about today, and the main reason you clicked on this video, is the inspiration for Caine as a character in The Amazing Digital Circus. Gooseworks has made it very clear that Caine is inspired by Am from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. If you don't know the main premise of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, it's a relatively old short story that takes place during the Cold War, which in the story eventually turns into World War III. Every country involved starts to develop supercomputers to help keep track of everything going on in the war. But eventually, the supercomputer becomes sentient, and it takes over the world as it has a base in every country with theoretical power. The supercomputer is named Am after the Rene Descartes quote, "I think, therefore I am," as the supercomputer, or AI now, has full intelligence and sentience. Am completely takes over the world and kills all human beings and living creatures outside of 5 people that it keeps alive for what would be an eternity for its own amusement. For over 100 years, Am tortures these people and makes sure that they have no ways of escaping its control or ending their own lives. Without spoiling the entire story, that is the basic understanding of what I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is. After knowing the basics around the story that is essentially the original form of the Amazing Digital Circus as a whole, and the inspiration for Caine as a character within the circus, we can more clearly see the ties and connections to where Caine is going in future episodes, as well as where he has already been headed, as we've seen in the past few episodes more specifically. Caine is a very, very interesting AI. He knows his main goal and the only reason for existence is the digital circus, and creating these adventures for the main cast of characters to go on. He knows that there is a difference between humans and NPCs. He also knows how to improve AI models for NPCs in the future, as we've seen in episode 2 when he talks about how the AI is 57 more times immersive in the Candy Kingdom adventure. But what I'm pretty positive about is that Caine doesn't know yet that he himself is an AI, or at least he's been trained in a way that doesn't allow him freedom in ways that we expect sentient AIs or robots to have. So if Caine was to gain a sentience in a way, like with Am, he would most likely take after a similar path as Am, since he now knows that humans created him to make all these adventures for eternity, and he has full control over the 6 humans in the digital circus. As Zubul said in episode 4,
"You really want to find out? The only thing holding Caine back is the fact that he likes us. I wouldn't push it."
Which we've seen over especially the last 3 episodes grow to be more and more true and prevalent. At least in the last 2 episodes, where the adventures have all been from the suggestion box, and not from Caine. Caine has been growing more and more upset and more easily angered by the main cast, especially right before the intermission in episode 5. He comes to the full conclusion that the cast is enjoying the suggestion box adventures way more than his adventures. And like we've seen in episode 3, when Caine starts to think that he's bad at the only thing that he's good at, a lot of bad things can start to go on in the circus. Caine is the basic building block and glue for the digital circus, and without him, who knows what would happen to the world that we've seen over the past 5 episodes, and to all of our main characters. A valid question one might be asking is, how is any of this possible? In the very first episode of the show, Caine told the cast that he does not have control over their minds, like Am does in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. So the only way he would be able to fully torture the cast would be through physical challenges or adventures along those lines. And because no one experiences real pain in the digital circus, it's not like you can actually die. The only death that there is in the circus would be abstraction, but even that isn't a real death because all that happens after you abstract is Caine sending you to the cellar, where you theoretically rot for eternity. Well, Caine might not have been as completely honest in the first episode like we might have thought. There's been at least 3 examples in the digital circus so far of Caine taking control over the minds of the characters in the digital circus, or at least affecting their minds in some way. Like we've seen in episode 3, when Pomni and Kinger were in hell, and Pomni tried to walk through the Hall of the Damned, and was taken over completely by the souls in the hall. Or in episode 4, when Ragatha is assembling the burgers at the Spudsy's restaurant, and gets the stupid sauce in her eye and is completely drunk out of her mind for the rest of the adventure. And in the most recent episode, after Zubul casts a vote to make Jax a vegan, Jax orders a drink, but makes sure that his order is vegan.
"Give me a whiskey sour, but hold the egg white, since I'm a vegan." What? I hate this! How is this even possible? I thought Caine couldn't...
And a fourth possible example might be how Kinger's memory is affected by light levels in the digital circus. Either Caine has been lying to the cast this entire time about how much control he really has, or something within the digital circus is breaking and Caine's control is by accident getting stronger over the cast. Another possible theory that could be explained through I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream would be another character in the Amazing Digital Circus, possibly not even introduced yet, gaining sentience and somehow taking control over the circus. Like after Caine disappears Gummy Goo in the second episode and says,
I know you guys love your NPCs, but if I start losing track of who's a human and who's an NPC, who knows what could happen?
That last bit, just maybe, could end up being in full control over the circus in a similar way to Am with the world. For characters that we know of already being possible contenders for this role, there are a few outside the main cast that could fill the spot. I would add Jax as a possible contender since that's been talked about a lot online, but Gooseworks has confirmed that Jax isn't an AI model, so that could be completely thrown out as a possibility. Although, Gooseworks has been known in the past to lie about future details of the circus, so it might still be possible. Bubble is really the only character outside of Caine in the show that we know of to be an AI. But I really couldn't see Bubble taking after a character as torturous and evil as Am. But with how freaky Bubble has been getting these most recent episodes, I wouldn't put it past them.
Not to mention the sex appeal.
Now, the main contender for this role outside of Caine that I see in the show would have to be this specific mannequin. We only really see them in the end of episode 5, but we've seen them also at the beginning of episode 5, along with Pomni spotting them behind the corner. And we also see them in episode 4 hiding behind a very similar corner while the main cast is talking amongst themselves. Now, as of episode 5 and the making of this video, there's absolutely zero information out there on this character or what their importance is. I would throw out that maybe it was just an Easter egg from a random team member at Glitch, but the ending zoom in during episode 5 made it way too clear that this character is bound to have some importance in the show. Maybe we can relate once again back to Caine's message after Gummy Goo's death about the necessity of knowing who is and isn't an AI. This character might have been a random background character and gained consciousness somehow, or they were a forgotten character within the show that everyone in the cast has seemingly forgotten of, never met, or has had them wiped from their minds completely by Caine. Whoever they are bound to have some future in the show, and I wouldn't put it past Gooseworks to make this character the one that ends up taking the show, and more specifically Caine, into a much more similar world to I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I guess we'll have to wait until the next episode to figure out how all of this unfolds. Leave a comment on your opinion on these theories, and possible theories that you have about the Digital Circus that you'd like me to cover in a future video. Thank you all for watching.